Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today. We're talking about AI usage in video games. Very touchy subject, no doubt. We all have an opinion on it. We're really watching the AI gold rush happen before our eyes as big corporations from Microsoft, who we're going to be talking about a lot today, to Amazon, Meta, are all rushing into AI. The US government is trying to gain control of AI as China has had a major breakthrough with DeepSeek that has now probed Europe as a whole to invest big time in AI. Everyone is betting on AI to improve and enhance parts of our lives, make things more efficient. Like, this is the future. It's one of those subjects I've just in the last month or two become very attached to and just learning about it, because there's just this bottomless pit of information on it. And it feels like every day there's a new breakthrough. I'm no expert on the matter, of course, but I thought on the game development side of things, I would have a lot of thoughts I could share, because Microsoft just introduced Muse with a new AI model they're calling Wham, which is the World and Human Actions model. We're going to get into what's going on with Wham. We're also going to talk about the ways AI is currently used in game development, at least like a few examples, how Microsoft has achieved this. Is it actually good for game development? At the end of all of this, Microsoft puts out what I think is a very clear red herring, which is, oh, something back compat, something back compat. And obviously for us Xbox fans, back compat is a magic term. You say that, my head's turned, you got my attention. We can do what now with AI? I'm on board. But really what you have here are very light, tangible results of this new model Xbox is putting forward, and it's in its early states, just like what you saw with something like OpenAI, where they put out ChatGPT, and as the public uses it, they gain information, they can iterate, adjust, and improve the model. So this is the ground level. We'll see what it evolves from, but right now, got a lot of thoughts. That's all the setup. Let's get into it. If you're new here and you're into what's going on with video games nowadays, it's evolving each and every single day. Consider subscribing. You'll catch up right here. So what ways are AI used right now? Well, there's a few. For example, you could communicate a visual with someone who's working on your game development team. If maybe you're down an artist, whether your artist is sick, sometimes just life happens, or maybe you're a very talented programmer who can also 3D model, but you don't necessarily have the artistic skills to create concept art that would be a workable piece for you to make a 3D model off of. So maybe as someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of money as well to invest in their project, you use AI to generate a visual to work from. You could also use AI to, say, generate a landmass for your game world. You could also use it for NPC interactions. I remember before Lies of P came out, you saw that there were placeholder AI, or sometimes even just developers in the studio, voice lines that were for these characters so that you could assign it, do the subtitles for it, get everything working as part of that process, then actually later on get the real voice performance in there. Vocals for music is another one. Re-recording music is really expensive. If you can use AI to kind of just get a feel for what the lyrics are going to be like, how the song is actually going to go, then maybe you can save a little bit of cash that way on just sort of handing it to a talented vocalist and, for lack of a better term, using them more as like a printer, if you will, of like something that sounds like this, please. Thank you. And I think best of all, if anything, if AI is used properly as a tool, it's replacing the tedious parts of game development, which admittedly, because I'll get into some of my game development experience in this video, I have no experience with. I have done, alongside my team, all the tedious parts that I would consider replacing with AI. Everything from putting down blocking volumes across your world, and there are certain things programmatically on the back end you could do, like if you walk into a ledge, like the game just stops you there. But obviously, sometimes the manual placement is just the first step of things. So being able to just get proper collision down for your game, so like the player doesn't walk off into the void, is a good thing. Now in this conversation, there's also two other things going on. Number one is Xbox has introduced it, and let's be honest, there's a little bit of demonization alongside that comes from, say, the games media. Xbox is usually the first to step out with, we'll say, pretty aggressive business plans, and they lay them out there for the public to decide how they feel about it, and then they just march happily in that direction. The other thing is the nuance in the conversation of AI. I come from the side of the fence where I feel like there's a lot of great usage already building up for AI in the game development sphere. Even I can see it being incredibly useful. It's not a matter of if, but rather when it comes to AI at this point in time. The other aspect, which I feel can go unsaid, but I just want to make sure I cover all my bases anyway, is of course AI should never replace the important parts of the creative vision of games ever. I feel like a lot of companies are losing sight of that in this gold rush for AI, and I worry about how big corps will utilize AI, as we'll talk about in a little bit. So I wanted to go over some examples of non-Xbox things that are happening in the world of gaming and AI. PlayStation has said that they are going to use AI and machine learning to speed up game development, and one example that is provided in this Insider Gaming article is that they used machine learning in the production of Spider-Man 2 for the subtitles, which dramatically shortened that process. That's a tedious thing that you can immediately get rid of through the power of AI and have like a human comb over it. Sony is also working on an AI assistant for gaming, which is described in this MSN article as, in addition to the conversational digital assistant, Sony filed a patent for a virtual assistant for game discovery on February 6th. The AI assistant would possess a machine learning algorithm that enables it to emulate the communication style of popular PlayStation characters and provide in-game guidance. In the patent application, the example shows a person playing Horizon Zero Dawn and asking how to defeat a particular foe. An on-screen overlay of Kratos' head provides the response. Now, in light of the push for AI tech in gaming, the good news is some place like the PS Store, which has been overrun with shovelware, we're seeing they are now trying to remove more of that, more of the AI spam games that a lot of us fear would flood the market with these tools. And no doubt we're going to see more of them, but it's good to see that storefronts like Xbox have always kept things relatively clean, but the PlayStation Store is starting to tighten that stuff up as AI is progressing further into games. Meanwhile, Nintendo said they would rather go in a different direction. In an interview with the New York Times, Miyamoto brought up AI himself as an example of something where Nintendo would rather do things differently than its peers. It might seem like we are just going in the opposite direction for the sake of going in the opposite direction, but it really is trying to find what makes Nintendo special, Miyamoto said. There is a lot of talk about AI. For example, he continued, when that happens, everyone starts to go in the same direction, but that is where Nintendo would rather go in a different direction, end quote. The article continues, Miyamoto's comments follow those made by Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa in July, when he said generative AI can be used in creative ways, but its use also raises issues with intellectual property rights, which, by the way, the subject we're getting into today with Muse is generative AI. Quote, we have decades of know-how in creating the best gaming experiences for our player, Furukawa added. While we are open to utilizing technological developments, we will work to continue delivering value that is unique to Nintendo and cannot be created by technology alone, end quote. So they are not all in on the gold rush, if you will. They are trying to use it as a tool, which I think is a good thing. Still, a lot of people have framed this as just Xbox, but it's not. I mean, it's every industry in the world, to be quite frank. Everything from the health industry to gaming is investigating how AI can evolve things. Now, who is this for? This tool, this Wham model through Muse. This is apparently for developers trying to get out of pre-production ASAP. It's also trying to generate ideas with context that AI previously couldn't, meaning it can actually try to consider the entire breadth of an experience, particularly in its gameplay. Because what you'll see here in some of its limited testing is that they're using this to iterate during certain stretches of gameplay. For example, level design. Do we put a stair set here or not? How many players want to get up on this ledge after looting this chest? So it can open up that ability of iteration. Now, one thing that's never mentioned in all of the research done that you can read about on the Nature article attached to the Xbox Wire post, which we'll also be going over here, as well as any of the videos, is the ability for this AI tool, or really any AI tool, to marry story and gameplay together. And I think it's simple as to why that has never been the case thus far, and it's because, at least as it stands right now, with AI moving as fast as it is, who knows if one day we achieve this, the ability for AI to consider narrative context and generate gameplay ideas off of that seems quite fickle as of this moment in time. And I think that is an important part of the puzzle here, because I believe, at least personally, that the fiction, the narrative material, is the spine that makes the gameplay so enriched, because you are buying into the collective creative idea of a group of individuals who were inspired by something or saw something in the world and wanted to have that kind of art reflecting life moment. That is, I think, some of the most beautiful, powerful moments in our industry. And right now, I'm not seeing AI enhance any of that. So who is the tool really for, despite what's being said here? From my point of view, I think this is for corporates who need a handicap to get into the field of entertainment. I don't think there's much you're going to see in any of the on-screen visuals here that are going to, either as a developer or a fan of just playing games, spark a level of creativity. AI, like any tool's usefulness, will be determined by how responsibly it is wielded. And right now, between things like Muse, which we're talking about here, Ghostwriter from Ubisoft, which handles a lot of their narrative elements, admittedly, they say it's not the main story, but again, we'll talk about the dangers of AI, as well as EA using a text tool to generate full-on games. I do think AI will be really dependent on how responsible these corporations are when it comes to using these tools. They're looking to axe down the core creatives, the workforce for these games, and no doubt that the industry, I think, has bloated in size in some areas. When you look at Ubisoft's workforce, does it need to be 20,000 plus people? Could that operation be far more lean? I'm sorry, because it's going to sound like I'm advocating for job loss and firings and layoffs, but yeah, the reality of the business is I don't think, and clearly how Ubisoft is declining with their product quality despite their workforce, I don't think Ubisoft is running a sustainable business. That much is clear as they're about to sell off any month now. So AI is going to be used to replace these individuals so that the work process continues even when, oh, we fired our lead artist. Well, we've got a tool trained to generate art and ideas. Eventually, I think a codependency does form, and that can be dangerous for entertainment. So at the end of the day, to my original point, why is this for corporates, you may be asking? Because as the gold rush is occurring in gaming, I always say you can make hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm going to say easily, in video games, because it takes a really good idea and a really good game. And many of them are not chasing the millions, they're chasing the billions, right? With a capital B. And so for them, they're looking at the money coming in from live service. What? You can generate hundreds of millions of dollars per month with a one single popular game like a Fortnite? Get me in on this. And so how do you start producing ideas when you know jack diddly do about entertainment? You start using AI tools, right? How do you start to hire for talent when you know nothing about the creative process of the people who form this industry? You use AI. That's the slippery slope here. Will everyone do this? No. So don't mistake what I'm saying as pure dooming, but I'm not here sitting down comfortably trusting someone like Microsoft or Amazon or Meta to actually wield these tools responsibly and have creative consideration. Microsoft did put one thing in their wire post that I will highlight here that I think is a positive for their first-party studios if you're worried, but that is kind of what this tool is for. Now for how Xbox came to this. So there is a massive article on Nature if you want to go ahead and read it. There are also attached videos there that can give a little more context to what Xbox is talking about at a very surface level video with Dom Matthews, the studio head at Ninja Theory, which, by the way, what a weird pairing to see there, to be just quite frank about everything. Like, you have a studio in your first party family that's defined as the prestige studio, the one that's known to make art, and they are now the poster child for your new AI tool. And one thing that you could see clear as day is Dom's like iterating over and over, like, yeah, we're not using it to replace content, we're not using it to create content, like ideas, iteration, and so on. And so, you know, again, I get the vibe there that they're clearly very afraid of the reaction that this will garner. And rightfully so, because we know what it means. People aren't stupid. We know this means some form of replacement, whether it's now or eventually, of how great games are made. And in a time where humans are still making games and they're coming out not really great in a lot of instances, but not always. We already made a video talking about how modern gaming still has a ton of bright spots. You just have to know where to look. But when you look at what's happening with humans, I have no doubt Corp's going to be like, well, why, if they're producing middling 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 experiences, why don't we just have AI give it a shot? I bet they can make something better. So Xbox came to this through a user study through 27 different creatives ranging from indie to top AAA executives working in game development. They trained it on human gameplay data through this new model called Wham, or as I said earlier, World and Human Action Model. And that model is prompted with a promotional image showing combat from Bleeding Edge, yes, that shut down Ninja Theory video game. The model will then generate new visuals to spark ideation. And the example that they use shows how the model adds stairs at one point, which suggests that the level could have some room to breathe. Then they direct that character with the controller so they control a bit of the experience as it's iterating itself. And then they set up an ambush at one point by dragging and dropping images of two enemies to create this more dynamic event here. And then they generate this new sequence of action. And in turn, you have a brand new gameplay sequence through iterative AI tools. That is the idea there. Now, what I see there is very much bare minimum creative capability, to be quite frank. And I'll get into the framework that they built this tool set with, but I don't see how anyone who has played a video game before and said, I loved game X so much that I got into game development, wouldn't look at situations like this and just naturally through the process of testing their own game, find this stuff out. Again, this is where AI is an interesting tool. You can remove some of the grind of game testing down through AI tools. One thing that Bethesda Game Studios said they did with Starfield is they had AI just sprinting through their worlds constantly, just trying to run and crash the game, and they'd have tons of bug reports that they then go back and polish the game better. So I think AI in the terms of testing could be a good thing, because I think one thing this industry does need is more polish. I think there are still fantastic ideas, but more polish is a good thing. When I look at something like what we have here, though, which is generating content ideas, that's what it is at the end of the day. Like, for example, Don Matthews says, we're not using it to generate content, but what is it when you take the idea from an AI tool and make it into content, and it's not from the people who had a creative vision of like a gameplay sequence somewhere? Is that not creating content through AI? Is that not one and the same, just like a different way of saying it? So the three principles that this tool was built upon are consistency, which they define as generated sequences should remain consistent with the established game dynamics and remain coherent throughout with no sudden changes to game characters or objects. This is simply put collision detection. Like, you shouldn't fly through a wall. You shouldn't fall through the floor. That's the consistency they're talking about. Just maintaining what you see within the game world when it's already built. Diversity is the next one. The model should be able to generate a plethora of diverse and plausible sequences. So one example they show in the video is of a player approaching 3 different paths and sort of how they'd approach it, what they do after they hit that. And so what this could possibly do is inform game design. Like, oh, more players are taking the right path based off data that we've studied. And because they're going there more often, we're going to put a chest there and some extra resources there because that's the path most commonly sought out. And then there's persistency. The model should be flexible enough to allow novel modifications to the game state, assimilating them into the generated environment. So this is what I talked about with that gameplay sequence that they were building out in the video, where they were dragging and dropping images into the gameplay sequence so you can kind of add to the thing developing in real time. And so that's it. That's basically all you need to know about this tool and what it's currently doing right now. Xbox is doing a sort of co-pilot labs testing where players can get in, developers can get in. And I don't like to bring all of this up because I know at the end of the day, I, as a game developer, do have to deliver something for it to feel tangible. So I understand if you want to brush this part off, by all means, I get it. But I will just say, as someone who's been working in game development alongside a small team for the last number of years here, the last 4 years, I will just say that I don't see anything here that I go, we can't do this ourselves, and this would make our lives significantly easier. Like, I'm open-minded enough to say, if AI is something I can look at and go, oh, sweet, they can make our lives significantly easier, so we can just focus on, like, creating the story and creating the gameplay and the unique sequences that the player will find. Like, if we can just focus on those sorts of things, great. I am pro AI in that sense. I think as a tool, it actually sounds fantastic. But I look at something like this in the terms of iteration, and it goes back to what I think is a key game design philosophy that I didn't make up myself. I got it from Todd Howard, who is one of the most legendary game designers in the industry. And the line that even my team and I live and die by now is, great games are played, not made. And I feel like if you stop playing your game and even let AI play to iterate for you, you're stripping a critical thinking skill that is required to make great video games, right? You'll lay out a game design document. Been there, done that. You're like, all these ideas cook. They should all work well together. They marry one another. But then you put it together, you play it, and you just immediately see like, okay, got it. Like, that is the problem there. Like, that encounter felt wrong, or this dialogue stretch was too long, or this place feels too empty, and so on and so forth. You learn so much just by playing. And I know this isn't an outright replacement for playing, but I feel like by playing, you come up with your own creative ideas of what would make it better. Like, it's a natural human part of the experience. And again, AI can be useful in certain parts of the tool set. I just think the iterative part of it is where games really cook. Like, that is the part where you get to it, you play it. Like, we're kind of getting to that stage where you play it and you're like, we could do this, this, and that and make it so much better. So before you even lay hands on it, putting an image into an AI generating tool and being like, how would this combat sequence play out in 4 different ways before I even really lay hands on this thing? I don't know, man. Doesn't sound great to me. Now, in this Xbox Wire post here, they run through a number of things on how they're trying to make AI generative fun and boost creativity and open up possibilities. They mention here that they're working with Ninja Theory, and that what's groundbreaking about it is that it allows the model to create consistent and diverse gameplay rendered by AI, demonstrating a major step towards generative AI models that will empower game creators. Now, they say here, what does it mean for gaming? In bold, the middle text is all many people really care about right now. We'll talk about it. Is we believe this could radically change how we preserve and experience classic games in the future and make them more accessible to players. To imagine that beloved games lost to time and hardware advancement could one day be played on any screen with Xbox is an exciting possibility for us. Another opportunity we are exploring is how Muse can help game teams prototype new gameplay experiences during the creative process and introduce new content, taking games players already love and enabling our developers to inject new experiences for them to enjoy, or even enable you to participate in the creation process. This is the main thing people have been really hanging their hat on. Like, I don't see, I mean, it's anecdotal, so I apologize, but I don't sign on Twitter and I see people talking like, yo, this AI tool sounds bomb. Is everyone talking about the back compat? And it was wonderful PR tactic by Xbox because it's very clear what it's there for. They're just saying it like a floating thing out there, like, hey, this might be a thing we can do. If they were to provide anything tangible, I think this would have been it. Like, imagine a world where they announced this alongside an Xbox game, just any old Xbox game. It doesn't even have to be a heavy hitter old Xbox game, but like a game that previously was not capable of doing back compat that now can. It just shows that I think AI and cloud are big things for, we of course know Microsoft moving forward, and in turn its gaming division. Like, we know they're stepping away from hardware. And so I think back compat will eventually be available in this way where you'll stream like your Xbox app to your TV and you'll play Blinks the Time Sweeper. I have no idea why that game always comes to mind. I swear to God, it's like tattooed on my brain. Nonetheless, the last thing I really wanted to cover here is Xbox's approach to generative AI. The bottom paragraph is what we're looking at here. For Xbox, game creators will always be the center of our overall AI efforts. We believe there is space for traditional game development and future generative AI technologies that serve as an extension of creative work and offer novel experiences. As part of this, we have empowered creative leaders here at Xbox to decide on the use of generative AI. There isn't going to be a single solution for every game or project, and the approach will be based on the creative vision and goals of each team. And that's where I'll end this conversation, although I know this video has been going on extremely long and probably a lot of people have clicked off, so they haven't heard the concluding point here. But what you kind of underline here is like what I described with very, very loosely and very vaguely my game development experiences. I see no use of the AI tool here. However, there may be much bigger productions than our small 10-man team, if you will, that do see use in this. I cannot speak for them on that front, right? I will be watching closely and seeing if this does evolve the game development experience at all. Right now, though, for me and my perspective, I'm like, I don't see what this does. But for larger operations, maybe this is a game changer. I'll keep an open mind, as I always try to do, because I try to see the best in everything. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, it's interesting times right now, seeing AI just progress this rapidly. Like, it's really taken off this year, and especially last year as well. So we'll track it closely. We'll see what Xbox is doing with it, but no doubt this is a major shakeup for their first party, because it means that all of them have been approached at one point or another and offered this tool set, and we'll see who uses it and who doesn't and how it affects those games. I mean, this is something that we'll only really learn the impact of years down the line. So I'm very curious to see what happens with that. But ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts down below. Fire away. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.